Hi everyone. After the first section, we understand what kind of wind turbines we can use in the offshore wind farm, and also what kind of development we have in Taiwan. So as we know, most of the wind turbines right now are the fixed based, which means we have to put foundation on the seabed. So it's better to understand the foundation first, what kind of foundations we are using in the offshore construction. So in the next section, we are going to introduce you all the fixed type offshore wind turbine foundation. Okay, here is the list of all the types we are using in the offshore foundation design. The first one is called a monopole foundation. The second one is called tripod foundation. The third one is called a jacket foundation. The fourth one is called a negative pressure bucket foundation. The fifth one is called a gravity-based foundation. We will talk about the detailed design in the next few slides. Okay, the first type of foundation is called a monopile foundation. It's very simple, and the design is just put a very big column into the ground. So the column will hold the wind turbine. As you can imagine, because we are using one pile and it has to hold the whole structure, so the pile has to be very big. And when we install this pile, for example, we can use hammer to drive it into the ground, or use drilling, or use vibration, which means I need a very big working ship to drive this pile. So in engineering point of view, it requires a lot of manpower. It will require very special equipment to perform this installation. And also it will cause a lot of problems. For example, in the offshore foundation installation, usually we are just using hammers, which means every time we use hammer to drive this pile, it will generate very big noise in the surrounding area, and also the vibration. And we all know the waves in the ocean will affect the fish in the ocean. Also, as we mentioned previously, the dolphins. The high pressure generated during the installation will kill a lot of fish. So in Taiwan Strait, this type of foundation is not used because it will affect the environment greatly. The second type is called a tripod. Instead of using one giant pile to hold the structure, we use the three smaller piles. We can use a smaller size, which means when we drive the pile into the ground, the machine can be smaller, and also we don't need to use a big hammer to drive the pile, which means it will also generate much less noise and vibration in the ocean. Although it still requires a lot of other treatment to protect the environment, but this one is more environmental friendly one. So let's talk about detail. The tripod is using three piles to put it in the ground, but also you need a transmission piece as shown in the screen. Okay, the transmission piece is like what kind of tetrahedron or triangle shape, and it will merge to the top as a one pile. The top of the pile will hold the wind turbine. So the tripod is the major type we are using in the Taiwan Strait. And the third one is called a jacket, which is also a good option because you can imagine when we install those piles in the ocean, it's a lot different from what we are doing on the land-based installation. In the land-based installation, you can just stand there, make sure your pile is in the right place, and just use hammer to drive the pile into the ground. But in the ocean, all the working machines are ships, which means when wave comes, the ship will move. So it's very hard to fix the pile in one place and drive it into the ground. That's why the jacket type is developed. The way we do the jacket type foundation is we will use, first we will build a steel frame. The steel frame will have three holes. Those holes are for later we want to drive pile into the ground. And after we construct the frame, we will transfer it to the site, to the installation site, and put it on the seabed. After it is located in the seabed, we will know where is the location of the pile we should put it in, and then we drive the pile into the ground. And then this jacket also can be the transition piece. After we install the pile, we can put a transition piece on the jacket and put a wind turbine structure on top of it. So this type of foundation is also a good choice, but requires a lot of work, it's more expensive. Okay, the third type of foundation is called a suction bucket. The idea of suction bucket is a very interesting one. You just put a ball face down and then drop it to the seabed. And when you reach the seabed, because the ball is airtight bucket, And then we open a small hole on the top of the bucket and start to suck the water off the bucket. And you will generate a negative pressure in the bucket, so you will further suck the sand into the bucket. The bucket will be filled with the sand at the end. It will form a simple foundation. The advantage of this installation is environmentally more friendly because we don't need to use, for example, hammers, for example, the vibration to drive the pile into the ground. And also the size of the bucket will directly affect the capacity of the foundation. It also has some disadvantages. For example, if the seabed is a rock, which means the geotechnical condition is not suitable for this type of foundation, it's very difficult to install. So this type of foundation is very popular in civil engineering areas, but right now in the Taiwan Strait development, we are not using this type of foundation because we're not very familiar with geotechnical conditions in the seabed, although we are collecting all the data. Then the fourth one is the economically very good choice. It's called a gravity-based foundation. The idea is simple. Just put a very heavy rock on the sea bottom as an anchor. And after you put some kind of concrete bed on the seabed, you can build whatever on the top of it. So those type of foundation, usually we will construct the foundation in the factory. And the foundation can be big, can be small. But before we put it into the ocean, the foundation has to be, for example, floatable, which means the shape of the foundation is usually like a boat. So after we construct it on the land, the ship will drag this foundation to the installation site. After we reach the installation site, we will just let water flow into the boat and let it sink. As long as this foundation is heavy enough, is strong enough, then it can be a foundation of all kinds of structures. For example, when we build a bridge across the riverbed, sometimes we will use this type of gravity-based foundation. But you can see the disadvantage of this foundation is still obvious because it's not fixed on the ground, it's just a heavy weight. So when you have strong wind, when you have strong wave, when you have strong current, you cannot guarantee that your structure on the top will not move because the gravity of foundation is not heavy enough. It might be dragged by the current. And also another problem is the ocean current may kind of move the sand around the foundation away, which means the foundation may not be stable when you are designing it for the long-term use. So these are the 5 types of foundations that can be applied for offshore wind energy. Some of them are more environmental friendly, some of them are more engineering reliable. So what kind of foundation can be applied? There's no right answer or correct answer. We can choose the one that's affected the environment much less, but also is stable for the wind turbine operation. Because there's one information you need to know, the lifetime design for the one wind turbine is about 20 years. So when we choose the foundations, we need to consider after 20 years, what kind of environment we are facing. For example, the current may bring the sand away. For example, the fish may need to live around those foundations. So when we install the foundation, when we use the foundations, we need to also consider environmental impact. That's why every time we want to install the foundation, it requires a lot of other works which will be discussed later in this course, because after all, we are developing new green energy. We don't want to destroy the environment during the installation process.